The Hidden Library. Chapter 1. Secret Beneath the City. Emma Hoffman lived in Prague, a city full of history, narrow streets, and old secrets. She was 27 years old and had dedicated her life to study. Her small home was filled with books, scrolls, and maps. She was a scholar who believed that knowledge was the greatest treasure a person could hold. Many people in the city admired her intelligence, but they also thought she was too curious. Emma often spent long nights reading by candlelight, searching for answers to questions that others did not even ask. She was not satisfied with what was written in official records. She wanted to understand what was hidden, what was forgotten, and what was buried beneath the surface of the city. One evening, while studying old maps of Prague, Emma noticed something unusual. The maps showed the streets, the churches, and the rivers, but beneath them were strange marks. They were not part of the normal design. They looked like symbols, faint lines that suggested tunnels or chambers under the city. At first she thought it was a mistake, but the more she compared different maps, the more she realized that the marks appeared again and again. They were too consistent to be an error. Emma felt her heart race. She understood that there might be a hidden place beneath Prague, something that had been forgotten by time. Her curiosity grew stronger. She began to search for stories that could explain the marks. She read old chronicles, letters, and notes left by travelers. In some of them she found whispers of a secret library buried deep under the city. The library was said to contain books unlike any others, books that could change reality itself. According to the rumors, these books responded to the desires of the reader, rewriting the world to match their deepest wishes. Emma was fascinated but also cautious. She knew that such power could be dangerous. Still, she could not ignore the possibility. The thought of a hidden library filled with magical books was too powerful to resist. Emma spent days walking through the streets, looking at walls and stones for signs that matched the marks on her maps. She studied the old churches, the bridges, and the hidden corners of the city. She believed that the entrance to the library must be somewhere close, disguised as part of the ordinary world. Her mind was full of questions. Who had built the library? Why had it been hidden? And why had the marks survived on the maps when so much else had been erased? She felt that the city itself was speaking to her, offering clues to those who were willing to look carefully. At night, Emma sat alone with her thoughts. She imagined what it would mean to find the library. She thought about the books that could change reality, about the temptation they would bring, and about the responsibility of holding such knowledge. She understood that her search was not only about discovery. It was also about choice. If the library was real, she would have to decide how to use its power. She felt both excitement and fear. Her heart told her that she was standing at the beginning of something important, something that could change her life and perhaps the life of the entire city. Emma Hoffman studied old maps of Prague and noticed strange marks under the streets. She realized there might be a hidden place. Her curiosity led her to rumors about a library buried deep under the city. She did not yet know where the path would lead, but she understood that her search had already begun. The secret beneath the city was waiting, and Emma was ready to follow it. Chapter 2. First Steps. Emma Hoffman had always believed that knowledge was a path to freedom, but she also knew that knowledge often came with risk. Her discovery of strange marks on the old maps of Prague had already filled her mind with questions, yet she understood that she could not continue her search alone. She needed someone who knew more about the hidden traditions of the city, someone who had walked paths that ordinary scholars avoided. That was how she came to meet Victor Stein, a man whose past was marked by both brilliance and failure. Victor was 42 years old, once respected as an alchemist but now living in quiet obscurity. His experiments had been bold, and his search for truth had carried him close to danger. Many in Prague whispered about him, saying that he had tried to reach beyond the limits of nature. He had lost his position, his wealth, and his reputation, but he had not lost his knowledge. His mind was sharp, and his memory carried stories that others had forgotten. When Emma approached him with her maps and her questions, he listened carefully. He recognized the marks at once, for he had seen them before in old manuscripts and in the hidden corners of the city. He told her that the marks were connected to a legend, a story of a library buried deep beneath Prague, a place where books were not ordinary but alive with power. Victor explained that the library was said to contain volumes that could change reality itself. These books did not simply record words. They responded to the desires of the reader, reshaping the world to match their deepest wishes. He spoke with caution, for he knew the danger of such power. He had once dreamed of finding the library himself, but he had turned away, fearing that its knowledge would consume him. Yet when he saw Emma's determination, he felt something stir inside him. He realized that she was not driven by greed or ambition. She was driven by curiosity and a desire to understand. He agreed to help her, though he warned her that the path would not be easy. Together they began their search. They walked through the narrow streets of Prague, carrying maps and notes, looking for signs that matched the symbols. The city was full of history, and its walls carried marks that most people ignored. Emma and Victor studied them carefully, tracing faint carvings on stone, faded drawings on old doors, and hidden signs near churches. Each symbol seemed to point toward something deeper, a path that led below the surface of the city. Emma felt excitement with each discovery, while Victor felt caution, reminding her that every step carried risk. As they moved through the city, Emma noticed how Victor's knowledge guided them. He remembered stories of tunnels built during wars, passages used by monks, and chambers hidden by scholars who feared persecution. He explained how Prague had always carried secrets beneath its streets, and how the library might be the greatest secret of all. Emma listened closely, realizing that Victor's past had given him wisdom that she could not find in books. She respected his caution, but she also felt that his fear was balanced by her courage. Together they formed a strange partnership, one built on curiosity and memory. At night, they returned to Emma's home to study the maps again. They compared their notes, marking places where the symbols appeared and planning where to search next. Emma felt her heart race as the pieces began to connect. She believed that they were moving closer to the truth. Victor, however, reminded her that the library was not only a place of knowledge but also a place of temptation. He told her that many had searched for it before, and some had been lost in their desires. Emma listened, but she felt that she was ready to face whatever lay ahead. Their first steps had been taken. Emma Hoffman, the scholar, and Victor Stein, the former alchemist, had joined their paths. They followed secret symbols on the walls, believing that they would lead them to the entrance of the hidden library. The city of Prague seemed to watch them silently, its stones carrying memories of centuries, its shadows hiding truths that waited to be revealed. Emma felt that her journey had truly begun, and Victor felt that his past had returned to meet him once more. The search for the hidden library was no longer a dream. It was a path, and they had already started walking it. Chapter 3. Voice of Shadows. Lucas Moroz walked the streets of Prague with the steady steps of a man who had spent years watching over the city. He was 35 years old, strong in body, but his strength came not only from his training as a guard. It came from discipline, from the habit of listening to whispers and noticing details that others ignored. He had grown up in the city, the son of a craftsman, and had chosen the life of a guard to protect the people. Yet he knew that protection was not only about keeping order in the streets. It was also about understanding the hidden dangers that moved in silence. For several days Lucas had noticed Emma Hoffman and Victor Stein walking together, studying walls, tracing marks, and moving through places that most citizens passed without thought. At first he believed they were simply scholars chasing old stories, but the more he watched, the more uneasy he became. Their search was not random. They followed a path, guided by symbols that seemed to carry meaning. Lucas suspected they were looking for something dangerous, something that could disturb the balance of the city. He decided to follow them, keeping his distance, moving like a shadow behind them. One evening, as the sun set and the streets grew darker, Lucas saw Emma and Victor stop near an old church. They studied the stones carefully, pointing to faint carvings that most eyes would miss. Lucas moved closer, pretending to be part of the crowd, and he saw the marks himself. They were not ordinary scratches. They were symbols, strange and deliberate, placed with purpose. He felt a chill as he realized that the marks matched the stories he had heard long ago, stories of a hidden library buried beneath Prague. He had dismissed those tales as legend, but now he understood that they might be true. Lucas remembered the warnings told by older guards when he was young. They spoke of places under the city where knowledge was hidden, knowledge that could change the world. They said that such secrets were dangerous because they tempted the heart and twisted the mind. Lucas had never believed those stories, but now, seeing Emma and Victor follow the marks, he felt that the past was rising again. He understood that if the library was real, it could bring both wonder and destruction. He felt torn between duty and curiosity. His duty was to protect the city, but his curiosity pushed him to learn more. As he followed them through the narrow streets, Lucas thought about Emma and Victor. He knew Emma as a scholar, respected for her intelligence, but he also knew that her curiosity often led her into places where danger waited. Victor was different. Lucas remembered him as an alchemist who had lost his reputation, a man who had once searched for power beyond nature. Lucas wondered if Victor's past desires would return if the library was found. He felt that both of them carried risk, and he realized that he must watch them closely. That night, Lucas stood alone in the shadows, thinking about what he had seen. The marks on the walls were real, the path was clear, and the legend of the hidden library was no longer just a story. He understood that Emma and Victor were moving towards something powerful, something that could change the city forever. He felt fear, but he also felt responsibility. As a guard, he could not ignore the danger. He decided that he would continue to follow them, not to stop them yet, but to understand what they were seeking. He believed that the voice of the shadows was speaking to him, warning him that the city carried secrets too heavy to remain hidden. Lucas Moroz, the city guard, noticed their search. He suspected they were looking for something dangerous. He decided to follow them. Soon he saw the marks himself and understood that the legend might be true. The shadows of Prague had begun to whisper, and Lucas was ready to listen. Chapter 4. Gates of Knowledge. The night was quiet when Emma Hoffman, Victor Stein, and Lucas Moroz finally reached the old church that stood at the edge of the city. Its walls were worn by centuries, and its stones carried the weight of forgotten prayers. Emma had studied the maps carefully, Victor had followed the symbols with his trained eye, and Lucas had watched them both with suspicion and growing curiosity. Together they stood before a narrow passage hidden beneath the church floor. The air was damp, and the silence felt heavy, as if the city itself was holding its breath. Emma's heart raced as she touched the cold stone. She had dreamed of this moment since she first saw the marks on the maps. Her mind was full of questions, but her spirit was full of determination. She believed that knowledge was worth the risk, even if it carried danger. Victor stood beside her, his face pale in the dim light. He had once searched for secrets in alchemy, but those searches had cost him his reputation. Now he felt the same temptation rising again. He wondered if this library would give him the answers he had failed to find in his past. Lucas, the guard, kept his hand near his sword, not out of aggression but out of caution. He had sworn to protect the city, and he feared that what lay beyond the passage might threaten it. The three explorers pushed against the heavy stone doors. At first they did not move, but then, with a deep groan, the doors opened slowly. A rush of cold air escaped from the darkness inside. They stepped forward, their footsteps echoing against the walls. What they saw made them stop in awe. Before them stretched a vast hall, larger than any they had imagined. The ceiling rose high above, supported by pillars carved with strange symbols. Shelves lined the walls, reaching upward, filled with countless books. Each book glowed faintly, as if alive, casting soft light that shimmered across the hall. Emma felt her breath catch. She had spent her life among books, but these were different. They seemed to pulse with energy, as if they carried not only words but living memory. She reached out her hand, but stopped before touching them, afraid of what might happen. Victor's eyes shone with hunger. He saw the books as treasures, each one a key to power. He imagined what it would mean to hold such knowledge, to rewrite the mistakes of his past, to change the world as he had once dreamed. Lucas looked around with unease. He saw the glow of the books and felt that they were not only knowledge but temptation. He wondered what would happen if such power fell into the wrong hands. The hall was silent, yet it felt alive. The glow of the books was steady, like breathing. The explorers walked slowly, their eyes moving across the shelves. They saw volumes bound in leather, scrolls wrapped in silk, and tomes covered in dust. Some looked ancient, others looked new, as if they had been written only yesterday. Emma realized that the library was not bound by time. It carried the past, the present, and perhaps even the future. She felt both wonder and fear. Victor whispered to himself, though no one heard, imagining the secrets he could uncover. Lucas kept his distance, watching them both, knowing that his duty was to guard not only the city but also their choices. They understood at once that this was the hidden library. It was not a place of ordinary knowledge. It was a place where books glowed with desire, where words carried power, and where reality itself could be shaped. Emma felt that she had found the greatest discovery of her life. Victor felt that he had found the chance to restore his lost dreams. Lucas felt that he had found a danger greater than any sword or army. The gates of knowledge had opened, and the three explorers stood inside, knowing that their lives would never be the same. The hidden library waited in silence, its shelves full of glowing books, its hall filled with secrets. Emma, Victor, and Lucas realized that they had crossed a threshold. They had entered a place where knowledge was alive, where truth was dangerous, and where every choice would carry weight. The gates of knowledge had welcomed them, but they also warned them. The library was not only a gift. It was a test, and the three explorers had just begun to face it. Chapter 5. Trial of Desires. Emma Hoffman stood in the glowing hall of the hidden library, her eyes fixed on a single book that seemed to call to her. Its cover was simple, yet it shone with a faint light that felt alive. She reached out with trembling hands and opened it. The pages were filled not with ordinary words but with shifting images that moved like water. As she read, she saw her own dreams begin to take shape. She saw herself standing in great halls filled with knowledge, respected by scholars across Europe, her name written in books that would last for centuries. She saw a life where her curiosity was rewarded, where she was free to study without limits. For a moment she felt joy, but then she realized that the book was not only showing her dreams. It was offering them, tempting her to accept them as reality. She understood that the price would be high, though the book did not say what the price was. Victor Stein watched her closely, but his own attention was soon drawn to another book. Its cover was dark, heavy, and marked with symbols that reminded him of his past experiments. He opened it and saw visions of his younger self, standing in a laboratory filled with fire and glass, surrounded by respect and admiration. He saw the days when he had been called a master, when his work had been praised, before failure and disgrace had taken everything from him. The book showed him a chance to bring back his past, to erase his mistakes, and to restore his name. His heart burned with temptation. He had lived for years in silence, carrying regret, and now the book offered him a way to undo it all. Yet he felt fear, because he knew that such gifts were never free. The library was powerful, but it demanded something in return. Lucas Moreau stood apart, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword, but even he was not free from temptation. A book near him glowed with a deep red light, and when he opened it, he saw visions of himself standing above the city, commanding armies, his name spoken with respect and fear. He saw power in his hands, the kind of power that no guard had ever held. He imagined a life where he was no longer a servant of the city but its master. The book showed him what he had never admitted even to himself: the desire for control, the wish to rise above others. He felt the weight of the vision pressing against his heart, and he understood that the book was offering him more than a dream. It was offering him a choice. The three explorers stood in silence, each holding a book that revealed their deepest wishes. The library had tested them, not with puzzles or traps, but with desire. Emma wanted knowledge and recognition, Victor wanted redemption, and Lucas wanted power. Each of them understood that the books were not ordinary. They were alive, and they were dangerous. They offered gifts that could change reality, but they demanded a price that none of them could yet see. The glow of the hall grew stronger, as if the library itself was watching them, waiting for their decision. Emma closed her book slowly, her hands shaking. She felt the temptation pulling at her, but she also felt the danger. Victor stared at his book, his eyes full of longing, while Lucas held his book tightly, his jaw set with determination. They all realized that the trial of desires was not about knowledge alone. It was about choice, about facing the truth of their own hearts. The library had shown them what they wanted most, but it had also shown them the risk of wanting too much. The price was high, and they knew that if they accepted the gifts, they might lose more than they gained. The hidden library stood silent, its shelves glowing, its books alive with power. Emma, Victor, and Lucas had faced the trial of desires, and each of them carried the weight of temptation. They understood that the library was not only a place of knowledge. It was a place of testing, where the deepest wishes of the heart were revealed, and where every choice carried consequences. The trial had begun, and the price of desire waited in the shadows. Chapter 6. Danger of Choice. The hidden library glowed with a strange light as the three explorers stood among the shelves. The books they had opened were no longer silent. Their words and images began to spill into the world around them, shaping reality in ways that none of them had expected. The stone walls trembled, dust fell from the ceiling, and the air grew heavy with power. Above them, the city of Prague began to shake. The streets cracked, and the bells of the churches rang without hands to move them. The desires of Emma, Victor, and Lucas were no longer private thoughts. They had become forces that reached beyond the library, touching the world outside. Emma Hoffman felt fear rise in her chest. She had always believed that knowledge was a gift, but now she saw that knowledge without control was a danger. The book she had opened had shown her dreams of recognition and endless study, but she realized that if she accepted them, the city itself might pay the price. She looked at Victor and Lucas and saw how their hearts were consumed by longing. Victor's eyes burned with the desire to erase his failures and restore his past glory. Lucas's hands shook as he imagined the power to rule, his face hard with determination. Emma understood that the library was testing them, and she knew that if they failed, the world above would collapse under the weight of their desires. Victor Stein stood with his book pressed against his chest, his mind filled with visions of laboratories, respect, and triumph. He had lived too long with regret, and now the chance to undo his mistakes was before him. He felt that the library was offering him redemption, but he also felt the danger. The walls cracked louder, and he realized that his wish was not only shaping his own life but also tearing at the city itself. Still, his heart resisted letting go. He had lost everything once, and the temptation to take it back was stronger than his fear. Lucas Morose gripped his book tightly, his body tense as the visions of command and power filled his mind. He saw himself standing above armies, his name spoken with respect and fear. For years he had served others, protecting the city without reward, but now the library offered him control. He felt the ground shake beneath his feet, but he told himself that power was worth the risk. He believed that with strength he could protect the city better than anyone else. Yet deep inside he knew that his desire was not only about protection. It was about pride, and pride was dangerous. Emma tried to stop them. She spoke with urgency, reminding them that the library was not a gift but a test. She told them that the books were alive, that they demanded a price, and that the price was too high. She reached for Victor's book, but he pulled away. She tried to take Lucas's book, but he held it tighter. The glow of the shelves grew stronger, and the hall shook as if the library itself was warning them. Emma realized that she could not fight their desires with force. She had to fight them with truth. She told herself that the only way to save the city was to refuse the temptation, to show them that acceptance of reality was stronger than longing for change. The danger of choice filled the hall. Each of them stood at the edge of decision, their hearts heavy with desire, their minds torn between fear and hope. The library had revealed their deepest wishes, but it had also revealed the cost. The city above was breaking, the walls were cracking, and the world itself trembled. Emma Hoffman understood that the library could destroy everything if its power was uncontrolled. She tried to stop Victor and Lucas, but their hearts were full of longing. The danger was clear, and the choice was theirs. The hidden library waited in silence, its shelves glowing, its books alive. The trial was not about knowledge alone. It was about desire, temptation, and the courage to refuse. Emma, Victor, and Lucas stood in the hall, knowing that their next choice would decide not only their fate but also the fate of the city above. The danger of choice had arrived, and the library was watching. Chapter 7. Revelation and Cleansing. The hidden library shook as if it were alive, its shelves glowing brighter, its walls trembling under the weight of the desires that had been released. Emma Hoffman stood in the center of the hall, her hands pressed against the book she had opened. She felt the visions pulling at her, offering her recognition, endless study, and a life of fame. Yet in that moment she understood that the gift was not real strength. It was only temptation, and temptation was a chain. She closed the book firmly, her heart steady, and refused her desires. She realized that true strength was not in changing the world to match her dreams but in accepting reality as it was. Victor Stein watched her, his own book heavy in his hands. He had seen visions of his past restored, his failures erased, his name spoken with respect once more. For years he had carried regret, and the library had offered him a chance to undo it all. But as he saw Emma's courage, he felt shame. He understood that his longing was not redemption but escape. He realized that if he accepted the gift, he would lose himself, and the city above would suffer. Slowly, with trembling hands, he closed his book. His face was pale, but his eyes carried a new light. He accepted that his past could not be rewritten, and that true wisdom was found in living with mistakes, not erasing them. Lucas Morose stood apart, his jaw tight, his book glowing with visions of power. He had seen himself commanding armies, ruling the city, his name spoken with fear and respect. For a moment he believed that such power would allow him to protect the people better than anyone else. But as the walls cracked and the ground shook, he realized that his desire was not protection but pride. He saw that the library was feeding his ambition, and that ambition would destroy the city he had sworn to guard. He closed his book with force, his hands shaking, and accepted that his duty was not to rule but to serve. He understood that true strength was not in control but in humility. The three explorers stood together, their books closed, their desires refused. The glow of the library began to fade, the trembling slowed, and the silence returned. Emma, Victor, and Lucas looked at one another and knew what they had to do. The library was too powerful to remain open. Its books carried temptation that could destroy the world if left unchecked. Together they moved through the hall, sealing the doors with stone, locking the secret deep underground. They worked with determination, each step heavy but necessary. When the final door closed, the library was silent once more, its power hidden from the eyes of the world. Above them, the city of Prague calmed. The streets stopped shaking, the walls stood firm, and the bells grew quiet. The danger had passed, and the world had been saved from collapse. Emma, Victor, and Lucas walked out of the darkness into the light of morning. The sun rose over the city, casting golden light across the rooftops. They felt changed, not by the gifts they had refused but by the strength they had found in themselves. Emma carried wisdom, Victor carried acceptance, and Lucas carried humility. They had faced temptation, and they had chosen truth. The hidden library remained sealed, its books silent, its power buried deep beneath the city. Emma, Victor, and Lucas knew that they had done what was right. They had refused selfish wishes, and in doing so they had found freedom. They walked into the light, changed forever, carrying the lesson that true strength is not in changing the world for desire but in accepting it honestly. Temptation can be strong, but only refusal brings freedom. Moral: true strength is not found in bending the world to selfish wishes, but in accepting it honestly. Temptation may look sweet and promise easy happiness, but it always asks for too high a price. Only refusal of desire and acceptance of reality bring real freedom and inner peace. Thank you for your attention. If you like the story, please like and subscribe. It motivates us to make new videos and helps us promote the channel. Thank you.